I'm going to start Hilchos Rosh HaShana, Siman Tav Kuf Peyal, the Torah, Tanya Pirkei, Rabbi Eliezer is going to speak about the idea of Chodesh Elul. We heard a very powerful shofar blowing this morning, and where does that come from? So, it comes from when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai for 40 days to receive the Luchas Shniyos. He went up on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and he came down on Yom Kippur 40 days later. And before he went up, so there had been a confusion the first time that the Bnei Yisrael had gotten confused about Moshe Rabbeinu's return, and they ended up in the Egel Azav. And this time they didn't want any confusion, and they blew the shofar. Moshe Rabbeinu is going up today. You should know now he's going up. He's not coming down for another 40 days, and that was to clarify. But it was also that time that they were supposed to be Isaac B'tshuva. This was a time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to complete the kapara, the tshuva for Klal Yisrael. He was going to give them the Luchas Shniyos, even though the first Luchas had been broken, but now he's going to give them the second Luchas. And there's a time of Ratzon. So it says in the Torah like this: Tanya b'Birkei Eliezer Rosh Chodesh Elul Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, Alei Elai Hara, come up to me to the mountain. She'az Allah l'kabel luchas achraynos. Then on that day Moshe went up to get eventually to get the luchas achraynos after 40 days. The viru shofar b'machana. So there was a tkiyah shofar throughout the camp of Klal Yisrael. Moshe has gone up lahar shelayitu oid achar v'dazara, that people shouldn't be toa anymore and make any mistake and go after avodah zarah. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu nis'aleh ba'isei shofar. Additionally, that wasn't just a reminder for Klal Yisrael, but it was also they had a power in that shofar that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was nis'aleh. As it says in the pasuk, Allah Elokim b'sruah. So nis'aleh literally means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes up. So I don't know what that means, but perhaps it was a reminder for Klal Yisrael to be osek in tshuva and to remember to correct their ways this time, to do everything properly. And because of that, emunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and that fear that brought HaKadosh Baruch Hu Allah Elokim b'sruah. There's big side dice in the shofar, and I don't pretend to know them, but the shofar has in it a very strong power. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, goes off the kisei of din and goes onto the kisei of rachamim, and every year brings us closer to the shofar that's going to be Lasid Lavai, that's going to be complete the tikkun of all the tikkunim, that everyone's going to be totally Avdei Hashem and recognize Him. Wasn't planning on mentioning this, but once we on the topic of shofar, so
running the power. Is that what the red is?
Not battery.
Battery.
Okay, it's all right. Don't worry. They don't understand.
Still recording, but it's still recording.
It's for you. It's not for the camera.
Just speak fast.
So, anyway, so we say about the shofar that the shofar was blown by Har Sinai, and that's the shofar that we mention a lot in this tefillah on Rosh HaShana in shofars. And the shofar we're saying here again was blown again before by the Luchas Shniyos. Interesting. So the point that Chaim Friedlander makes from the Ramchal is that you could think that whatever was accomplished in the Matan Torah, the first Matan Torah, now they were chotei. Now maybe was all anything that was accomplished in the first Matan Torah was now done away with, because they had to have another Matan Torah, and they had a Cheda Egel, and it doesn't seem like anything is left. The Luchas were broken. It's true that we have the Shivrei Luchas, but he says But you see that's definitely not true, because we keep bringing up again and again on Rosh Hashanah the Tkiya Shofar of the first Luchais of the first Matan Torah. So the idea that he says is that when Klal Yisrael had Matan Torah, that was a return to a certain power that Klal Yisrael had, or that mankind had before the sin of Adam Rishon. And there was a power that good overpowered evil, so to speak, and that was challenged by the Chet of Adam Rishon, and now by it was Paska Zu Amasa. It came to a point where humanity came that the incompletion that was in humanity because of the Chet of Adam Rishon was cleansed and was perfected. So now that didn't last totally, but in some extent it did last. So any time now that we're able to do tshuva for our aveiros and overpower the Ra, it's all going back, hearkening back to Matan Torah, that koyach that we were cleansed at that time, and the Tov overpowers the Ra, all goes back to them. He says, Amna. He says, the Tov got subdued underneath the evil, and Tov was mixed with evil. At the time of Matan Torah, the Tov, the power of good, was cleansed and clarified and came out from underneath, from being held down. And then the power of Tov, the power of good, was in control. The power of Tov came, even though it hasn't reached its full completion of control over Ra, but it has reached a power where it's not controlled anymore, and it has its own strength. So the power of Tov came out and is standing on its own. In the end of days, and that's the shofar that we're being mispalel for in Rosh Hashanah, that's going to come. Vayamu yitaka b'shofar gadol, la'asad lavai, yishtalei matikan hazeh, v'atov yichpai shesara legamri, v'atov sholet levada. So throughout our tefillos in Rosh Hashanah, we're mispalel for this to come about, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bring in the time when only the powers of good and the recognition of Hashem will be in this world, and nothing else will prevail. No other koyach around. He says, the first step for humanity was taken by Matan Torah. Nasai de HaShofar de Matan Torah, Inyan Kol HaShofar Chazek Ma'od. Because through the trembling by this shofar, the power of Ra that was in their heart was weakened. But the completion of this is going to happen in the end of days. And the Tov Yinatzech Nitzach and Gomor, that will also be through the shofar. Okay, so we see that there's a very strong power in the shofar, and it's the same power that is coming back every single year to bring this one step closer through our tefillos and through the Kol HaShofar. That's the power of shofar. Okay, so we start this already, not midaraisa, but minag, to do what was done in the midbar, and we started already from Rosh Chodesh Elul.
Amen.
וכן הסכינו חכמים ז"ל שיהיו טויקים בראש חודש אלו בכל שנה ושנה בכל החודש כדי להזהיר ישראל to warn Klal Yisrael shiyasu tshuva. Shenemar mitaka shofar be'ir va'am la yecharadu. So the first purpose during Elul is to remind us we have to do tshuva. The shofar is something that causes everyone who hears it to tremble. And when we tremble, the Yom HaDin is coming. Also, what we mentioned was that Klal Yisrael, during that time, was a time of rachamim, and it was a time of tshuva for Klal Yisrael. The second thing is I imagine what this means is, on some level, that maybe the Satan already thinks that Rosh HaShana is here already, and he sees we're already being Isaac in tshuva, we're already recognizing the din, and he doesn't know where he's holding. So I'm sure there's much deeper levels to that. The interesting, I don't know if we're going to get there, so maybe I'll skip a little bit about this point of Arbi Vasatan. The Torah brings later on, this is in Tav Kuf Pei Aleph that we're learning now, but later on in the Torah, in the next siman, in Tav Kuf Pei Beis, let's see, he brings two different opinions about what does it mean that when we blow the shofar in Rosh HaShana, so it's Ma'arviv the Satan. It's Ma'arviv the Satan.
That means to confuse the Satan?
Confuse the Satan. He gets all dumbfounded and discombobulated. He doesn't know where...
Wouldn't you think he'd figure it out by now?
He's a smart guy, right? Okay, so let's see. Find this. Okay.
Who says is he confused?
Yeah.
Like, how is something confused?
How's he confused? Okay, so we're going to say...
Not just the opposite.
Here it just says confused. Here it just says confused. But by Hilchos Rosh HaShana, the Torah brings... now there's two types of tkiyos.
Sorry, I guess I want to give a little more context. The Satan, the Satan or the Yetzer Hara is sitting inside of us.
Right.
Right. So it's not like there's this guy floating around that says, "Hey, I'm going to be the bad guy today." Right. I mean, we're adults here, so we're doing a little bit deeper than that. Shulchan Aruch is much deeper than that. So we're talking about it gets confused. It's not some guy who's just I hear a toot toot, and all of a sudden I'm confused. Right. What day is it? We're running around. It's Erev Rosh HaShana. We're doing tshuva. Right. So how does our Yetzer Hara, which essentially become confused, and what does that mean?
Right. So we're going to see two ideas now in the Torah, which part of the shofar is. But on one level, I think that based on what we were just reading now, we could say that on one of the things that the shofar does naturally is that it causes a ra'ada, causes a trembling from a person, and that trembling, that it brings a hachna, means it brings a certain humbleness. That a person, instead of being haughty, it's the opposite. Now he's afraid, he's frightened. It's time of din. He's standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now he's lowered, and that itself.
He remembers the bacon and egg sandwich he ate last week.
That itself gets the on some level weakens the Yetzer Hara. Okay, this doesn't explain the confusion, but it definitely weakens the Yetzer Hara when the Yetzer Hara is confronted with a person having a realization that he's standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu now, and there's no escape. Now listen to what the Torah says in Siman Tav Kuf Pei Hey. Okay, so skipping, we were in Tav Kuf Pei Aleph before. This is the dinim about Tkiyah Shofar. I'm going to say a part of it. So we stand by Tkiyah Shofar, and v'kaidem she'itaka yivarech l'shma kol shofar. Okay, you make a bracha, and okay, I hope I can find this. No, I don't have to say it by right. Okay, so we say like this: Amr Reb Yitzchak. Now, the point that he makes here is, the first point is that the tkiyos that we make right after we blow the shofar, right after we make the bracha on the shofar, are not the main tkiyos that we're yaitze the mitzvah with. Usually you would think that's the way it would be. Right after we make the bracha, then we would do the mitzvah. But here, this is an extra. The added tkiyos that we're doing are the ones that we do right away. The main ones are the ones that we do later on the seder of the brachas of Malchiyos, Zechonos, and Shofars. So I think in Nusach Sfard they do it by the silent Shemona Esrei. In Nusach Ashkenaz they do it by the repetition of the Chazan. Either way, those brachas are the brachas which those tkiyos are the main ones. So it says like this. Why do they do it when they're sitting? That was the ones that we do in the beginning are called tkiyos to miyushav. Our meaning is to stand up. But why do they do these first tkiyos kishen yoshvin when they're sitting? And why do they do it again kishen omden when they're standing by the Shemona Esrei? And the answer is kedei la'arbe v'satan, to confuse the satan. Perish. So now explains the Torah. Lama taikin miyushav kaidei musaf. Why do we do it first and before the tefillas of musaf? The chayz when taikin al seder brachas. Lama makdimin. Why do we do the first ones? That's the question. Lama makdimin letkay miyushav. The answer for the first ones, which are the extra ones, those are kedei la'arviv. Kedei she's arvivu. She's arviv miyad b'tkir rishayim. In other words, shalafnei tefillah v'leikate b'shas tefillah. We want to knock the Satan out before the battle starts. So the main time for us is when we come to the Tefillah Shemona Esrei. That's when we're standing in front of Hashem, and that's when we have our mitzvah of Tkiyah Shofar. So we don't want him to be mekatreg at that time. So we have a Tkiyah Shofar earlier, and the Tkiyah Shofar earlier already is ma'arviv the Satan. Miyad v'tkir rishayna shalafnei atfila, and now he won't be mekatreg b'shas atfila.
Don't you think after all these years he's the trick?
That's this is the question that's asked. Why doesn't he pick up on the trick?
Yeah.
So, if it's just a trick, so then you're right. That if it's just a trick, then it's like he gets all confused because there's a trick here.
The first 1,000 times you figure, okay, maybe a fool.
The Beis Yosef here explains from the Ran. This is part of what we mentioned before. Okay, maybe I saw this before. It humbles our Yetzer Hara, like the pasuk says, the Satan and Yetzer Hara. Like Zal said before, the Satan isn't a Satan floating around, it's the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara, when a person trembles, then the Yetzer Hara is weakened. So I think that where's the idea of the Arviv, to confuse him, come from? So the fact that we're doing something extra, I think this also comes from the Ran.
Did the translation instead of be confused, vulnerable?
The Arviv means to make vulnerable?
No, are we really making him vulnerable rather than confused?
What do you mean? Arviv means to mix something up, like
yeah, but are we really, instead of mixing it up?
He doesn't know what to do with himself now.
So
he doesn't know what to do because he's.
Because you know what? The person is all of a sudden starts thinking about tshuva. Starts getting nervous about the lashon hara he said yesterday, the bacon and egg sandwich he ate last week, whatever Vera he did
Tuesday.
Yeah. But I just want to, because that's really what's going on, right? What's tshuva? We didn't have Vera. We have to recognize we didn't have Vera. We have to say, Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're giving me so many brachas, and I'm doing these averas. What kind of thankfulness am I giving you? And all of a sudden, you hear the shofar, you start thinking about Rosh HaShana is coming up, I can't really keep doing what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing? I'm an idiot. right? And you're loose, and this Satan, had this control over you, and all of a sudden he's losing his
being
control.
broken. It's like shackles that's being broken.
Yeah, and so
So it's very interesting that the Iker Irvav of the Satan here is that we're being mocked him, that we're going first. Before, like, if you just wait till the Yom Adin and you just wait till the Shofar and then you wake up, so then he's not so worried. But if you're coming beforehand and now you're starting to tremble and now you're starting to wake up and starting to think and be afraid, that now the Satan's gets all nervous and now he's starting to, that puts him, there's nothing for him to do now. But there's another pshat here, and that he says like this: V'yesh mefarshim shemikayach tekiya rishayna misarve v'shniya. Since we already did the first one, so now the first one was already once he got knocked, he got knocked and he's already dizzy. But now, if you already did that one, so now by the time you come with the second tekiya is going to be ma'arviv the satan, because the first one was already in place. Now the second one is going to do this irva v'satan, not the first one. V'yesh mefarshim shemikach tekiya rishayna misarviv b'shniya v'ach yisab yushami bila mavet lanetzach. It's a pasuk that we say by every levaya. Chsiv haya b'yayim ahu bila mavet lanetzach means that the death will be gone forever. Chsiv haya b'yayim ahu yitaka b'shofar gadol. So on that day, when there's no more death, the shofar gadol will sound. Kad shama kol shofar chad zimna bahil. So the Medrash says like this: when the Satan hears the shofar one time, so bahil v'loi bahil, he's afraid, but he's not afraid. It already it's one punch. Omer shema mata hu zimna the shofar gadol. Maybe that time where where I'm done with forever and ever, where that big shofar, maybe that time is here. So that he's scared, but maybe it's not here. Kad shama tinyanus, when he hears it a second time, Omer v'adai mata zimne, for sure the time has come. Umirtas, and he's totally afraid. Umisarvev, and dumbfounded. V'lesle pnai, and has no clarity and no lemevad kategura to make any to make any. So this is very vivid in how it describes a state of confusion, right? That he's very afraid that it's this time. So I would guess that what this means is that it's saying that it reminds the Satan of the end of days, and that shofar gadol. He says maybe this is that shofar. So
what would one more repetition do then?
What? Saying why? If the first time he was mesupik, the second time he's still again mesupik.
But why not a third?
Well, we should do it a third time. We blow it 100 times.
So is the minimum for Rosh HaShana one blow? I know we do 100 different blows, and there's the 3 different types of blows, and different types of crying, and Sisera, and the whole bit. But
no, it's not. It's more than one. I don't want to go into the details of it, but it's
say you had the minimum.
The minimum. I think the minimum is 3 times 3. So
9.
you have to do tekiya to a tekiya, tekiya to a tekiya, tekiya to a tekiya. But
if you visit a sick person, you're expected to blow a full.
Okay, I'm going to stop here, because if I prepared Hilchos Shofar, so then I would get into. But now I'm going to. At this point, I'm already going to not going to be saying things right. So, but we're not sure whether the trua is the shvarim or the trua. So we have to do this for Malchiyos, and we have to do it again for Zichronos, we have to do it again for Shofars, and that would be the minimum. But again, we do it with the Trua and then with the Shvarim, and then with both them together, because we're not sure, and then we're Mashlim again, 100 Kailais, and it has to do with Sisra's mother crying, and there's different ideas involved in
I was just wondering,
the
say you're in a rush, and you're running from, and it's the Second World War, and you're in the middle of the forest, and you can't, and you need to just do it. Like it's that kind of situation, as opposed to.
Right. That's a good question. in as much as I said that the Ikar Mitzvah is with the Malchus, the Chaymas and Shofars, but I don't think that if a person can't do it with that, then they don't. Right? Let's say women or other people, they can't hear it Allah Seder, right? So then I don't think that's Ma'akev.
Similarly to what you said before, Rabbi once told me, the first year you do not go to the Beis HaKvaros many times, maybe once, or whatever. He told me you don't go many times because the din of a person lasts a year, and if you go and you say whatever, you sort of bring that person to the forefront. And you don't want him there, you want him to be ignored.
Interesting.
So therefore we only go once or twice during the first
year. After that, it's not as dangerous.
After that, there's no more din going on, and you can go every day.
Very interesting.
Interesting, but
yeah. So I was trying to explain, and as much as this arouses our curiosity, it's good that it will leave us with questions. I don't answer all the questions. That we'll be able to think more and more about what is the power of the shofar and what is the power of this irva v'satan. But in this sense, the second sense is that it's bringing up the fact that there's going to be a time in the end of days when death will cease to exist. There will be no more death, and the Satan is very afraid of that time, and the more he's reminded of that time, the fact that it might be very soon, and it might already be here, that is very frightening to the Satan. And I imagine that it's not just a magical tool, but it also has to do with us remembering that that ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Melech, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Melech, then there's no Ra will be Shaileit at all. And the more that it's being Ma'ira, the Suras Melech Bait, that this Trua is the trumpet of Malchus, is being Magvir, strengthening the Kayach of Malchus, and the Shlita, this power, the control of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world, that there's not going to be any power anymore. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Melech, then the Satan has no Shlita. And it's being Ma'ira and arousing that the strength of that midah, and the Satan's very, very scared that when his power is going to cease,
he's going to lose his job.
He's going to lose his job.
The Malach is not Hashem's not the Malach now.
Hashem is always the Melech, but Hashem is. But it says that on that time, Hashem is going to be Echad. Shema Echad, right? Until right now, it's not Hashem Echad or Shema Echad. There's still always this a lack of recognition, and Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't exercise to the full extent the midah of Malchus, of everyone recognizing the power.
Everyone's going to recognize.
Everyone's going to recognize everything. When that time comes, we're going to see how everything was bringing to that midah of Yichud and Malchus of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, Rosh HaShana comes, and when Rosh HaShana comes, then it's like a beacon of light that we see that day is coming, and that itself, bringing a remembrance of that coming, and that is coming very soon. That's very scary to the Satan. But at any rate, with our limited understanding, it is very interesting that it's a machlokes whether it's the first tkiyos that are ma'ariv the Satan, and then by the time the second tkiyos come along and we're by our Shmon Esrei, the Satan won't disturb us in our avodah, in our Shmon Esrei, because it's already ma'ariv, or it's the second tkiyos which are ma'ariv the Satan, because after the first tkiyos already shook him up, now the second tkiyos are very frightening. There was my wife was once we lived in Eretz Yisrael, and we were in Yerushalayim, and there was they call a ramkol. It's on top of the car. They have these loudspeakers that go around and make announcements, and on top of the car, so they had this announcement. I don't even remember what the announcement was. It was probably like an announcement that there's going to be a big sale for shoes or something. But whatever the sale, whatever it was, the beginning of the
Hello?
the beginning of the announcement was a big long tekiah shofar.
Oh, really?
That got everyone's attention.
Really?
And my wife called me to run quick to the window.
Is this Rosh HaShana?
Well, she didn't think it was Rosh HaShana, and I, in my little small level of Amunah, not waiting for Mashiach all the time, I'm like, come on, it's just a ram call. But she's like anxious, like maybe this is the shofar gadol, maybe this is it. Halavai, we should all be waiting. It should be the shofar gadol, should be coming very soon.
She's wanting to get a pair of shoes, actually. That's
Which shoes it comes?
We say every day in Shemona Esrei, the Kabbah Shel would know the Cheder Sein.
Yes.
Is that what we're referring to here?
Yeah, that's the shofar gadol is in the end of days. This is Kabbah shofar gadol.
So the Cheder Sein that's referred to in the Shemona Esrei, that's for the Via Samashiach?
Yes. Yeah, we are talking about kibbutz Goliath, but kibbutz Goliath in the times of Mashiach.
Sure.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's connected to the kibbutz Goliath, the shofar. Something to think about. I saw yesterday that the Rav Chaim Friedlander says that it doesn't mean Kabbah shofar gadol, doesn't mean that it's going to be a humongous shofar, but the shofar gadol means it's the shofar that does the job. Totally finishes the job. Shofar gadol means every shofar till then was like a small shofar in terms of doing a miniature of the job of bringing about the Malchus Shamayim, but then everyone recognizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Melech. But in the end of days, it's going to be a shofar gadol, which is going to be the end all shofar that's going to have the full power of shofar. So,
You have to choose.
That's
You
what I mean,
have-
shofar gadol.
you have to either go with Mashiach or get new shoes. Split decision.
Yeah. Okay, let's daven for Mashiach to come. Let's daven everyone for Mashiach to come, and for the shofar gadol to come, and during this shofar, it's a time of tremendous closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's a time for us to think of Hirhurei Tshuva, of thinking of how we could overpower, that we could stop doing Aveiros and allow the recognition of truth to prevail in
How
our
do
own
we
lives.
become closer? Hashem takes down some of the barriers, or we by ourselves do more? How do we come closer? In which way is it happening?
What was the question?
Then Hashem takes down some of the blocks that's blocking us, or we are doing more ourselves, and that brings us closer. Which is the one that happens?
You have to do both, right? So Shuva, Tefillah, Tzedakah, Ma'avir, and Israel Gzeira. We need to exercise all three. So there's different bechinas of Sor Meirav, Aseh Taib, right? We need both of them.
But Hashem doesn't make it more lenient then. He doesn't make it easier to do tshuva, right? During this time,
there are times that are much easier to do tshuva, and starting from Elul, it's easier, and then during Aseret Yemei Tshuva even more. And the fact that it's Yamim Nairayim, that are days of awe, is not a coincidence, right?
So he makes it easier.
It's
like by Shiloh HaKan, it says, why do you send Shiloh HaKan? And the reward is you get chesed, you get children, whatever you're asking for. So the question is, you're doing something cruel, looks like it, and you're getting rewarded with chesed. So they say that the answer is because there's different sha'ar upstairs. And you opened up by taking away the mother bird and making him come back cry. You opened up the Sha'ar Rachman so big that davening, because it's open, Hashem is going to
There's such a thing as the Eis Ratzon.
So is it the same type of...
Like the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen, or other mitzvahs, after we bench, we have a Eis Rachaman, that's why we have all the Harachamans, We do a mitzvah at the time of Eis Mitzvah. There's something Eis Mitzvah is opportune time, and these times are opportune times, and it's not just that, but this is a time of hischadshus. This is a time when like the whole workings of the Malchus Shemayim are redone, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you come and you're mispal in front of me today, and you do tshuva, and the Chazal say, "Fani bari lechem bria chadasha." I'll recreate you a new person. So, if a person has a chance at a new start and a new fresh ischadshus, this is an opportune time, and that's part of what I think we're going to miss this, because we all like having things that help us, and we know that there's a lot in place right now during these times that are helping us, that are there to say, today is not just a regular day. Today is a day when you heard the Kiyah Shofar, and wake up and remember, and we're running out of time, but I want to just tell you one thing that I once saw in the Sefer, and it really struck a chord with me in terms of doing tshuva and approaching doing tshuva, and that is that there's so much good inside of us, and there's so much potential. We have a neshama, a tahira, and we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu believes in us and is giving us these opportunities, and He's telling us the Rosh HaShana is coming, and He wants us to be Zaycha. We know that all this is inside of us, but at the same time, we have a tendency to not be realistic in terms of where we're holding. And a person who learned a lot at one time during his life thinks he's still holding there. That he's still, that's the madrega he's holding on. Because look, he has the potential to do it. Look how great I am. It just happens to be that today I didn't do that. But I'm still holding on that madrega. But we have to look at ourselves on one level in just a very practical way of imagine that we're just judging ourselves based on what do I do on a daily basis, and if we are the judge, what are my hergelim, right? What do I do what do I regularly do? And if that's what I'm doing, that's where I'm holding. And if I'm doing if that's not what I'm doing, that's where I'm holding. And I need to look at myself on a realistic sense of how could I become more effective in doing what I need to be doing more often. So we can't look at ourselves and just say, the fact that I had so much rachmanos on somebody once, that's really who I am. That's true. Deep down, that's really who you are. But that's not the you of what you're doing. And Kodesh Baruch Hu judges us according to our actions. So we have to think of what we could set into place in our lives, in our schedules, and look at that. And if we look at it like that, then we don't have to look so deep. And it's not so scared to make it. It's not so hard for us to make a cheshbon nefesh. And I'm talking to myself. We don't have to be so scared to think, how in the world am I going to make a true evaluation? Don't worry about the true evaluations. Just look at what we do. We could see, the same way that somebody else could look at what we do. Let's look at ourselves, what we do, and think, what did we do today? What did we do yesterday? And we can make a reckoning and think, what could we be doing? What could we be adding? What could be subtracting? And in that sense, we could become more effective Avdei Hashem. The same way that if we have a business or we have something that we want that's running smoothly and running effectively, we have to check the books. And checking the books doesn't mean looking so deep into it. Motivations. That could be the second step. But the first step is, where was the time spent? Where were the efforts put in? Where was the money spent? What did so and so do? They did X, Y, and Z, and that's the same thing with us. And then we could look at what we do and see if it was done effectively. And
it's very difficult because we always have excuses for ourselves. it's very hard to put out the truth there.
It's
To
true.
yourself.
It's true. So I'm saying, for me also, it's very difficult, and it's very easy to say that it's easy to do. But what I'm trying to say is that let's look beyond the excuses, not look at the why, just look at what, and then start from there. What am I doing? And then figure out what we could be doing or what we should be doing. And maybe there's excuses. There are excuses, and we don't have to be so hard on ourselves that we get depressed. But we could look at what we're doing and say, look, what I'm doing, and if I continue to doing like this is where it's bringing me. But if I change a little bit, then this is where it's bringing me. So Yashakach, thank you everyone, and you should have ksiva ve-chatima taiva, good gebencht yar. Hashem should answer all our tefillas and see our herhure tshuva and be mekabel our slichais for Shvi'al Ratzon.
Amen.
Sure.